be known that I had a whole day at home today, which I intended to use to film, you know, some videos, but it's now like 4:45 in the evening and I hadn't filmed anything yet. This is my first film for the day. So let's talk about Illuminae. Okay, so some thoughts about some books. This book is one of the books that made me realize just how much I don't like YA characters anymore. I don't want to say that as like a blanket rule, but there have been a couple of books that I've read this year already that have been what you would classify as YA books, and the characters in them were just not appealing to me at all. I just had no interest in them. They just all were characters that I did not care about and that did not have any complexity or originality to them, in my opinion. They're very much sort of like you buy a stock standard character type and then that's your character for the book. They all have the same kind of traits. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it just means that I just wasn't particularly invested in the characters. It doesn't even mean that I didn't like the characters. They weren't bad people or people that I, you know, didn't like with. It just means that there was nothing about the characterization or the character development that particularly kept me invested. Now, one thing that I will say about that is that part of that could also be the format of the book, the fact that it's told in the form of these text documents. So you don't really get any real insight into what any of these characters are thinking or what their motives are or anything like that. So I will say that I'm not entirely sure how much of it was sort of stock standard YA characterization or how much of it was the result of this format not actually putting forward that much in terms of characterization anyway. Let me know what you thought of the characters. In particular, if you are a big YA reader, let me know what you thought of the characters in this book, how they kind of match up to characters in other books that you have read, whether you think they're on par with other YA characters in other books or whether you think the characterization in this book wasn't particularly interesting. Yeah. Let me know what you think. Another thing that I will say is that the picture of Katie that they actually put in there, like the photo that was made up of the text Katie written over and over again, that really annoyed me. I really did not want that in there at all, because one of my favorite things about this book was how much you had to piece together and the fact that you didn't really know what these people looked like at all because the format didn't really allow for much physical description. And then they go and throw in like an actual photo that they've then edited to look like the text of a person, and suddenly there's no room for imagination on what Katie looks like. Like, you know what she looks like now. That really annoyed me. So like I did say in my blind book date video, the plot definitely was the star of this book. The format that it was written in really helped to kind of push the plot as the star of the book because of the fact that there was that huge suspense and that there were sort of plot twists happening all the time, and you felt like you had to go back and check dates and times and find out whether everything matched up and think about all that stuff, and it was so fast paced and there was so little information, so you had to piece everything together. I thought that that worked really, really well. I would happily give this book a 5-star rating based on the plot alone because it was really, really fun to read. But I also kind of felt like the ending wrapped up very nicely indeed. It kind of feels like when you're watching a thriller movie and you know that the main character isn't going to die from the very start. Basically, no matter how unlikely the series of events is that's going to lead to the end, you know that it will line up perfectly for that main character to stay alive, and that definitely is what happened in this book. Like, Katie should have died. She should have died in that, and I almost feel like even the science was kind of bent to make sure that she didn't die. Like, it would have been much more thrilling if she had ended up dying there. Like, that would have set this book apart for me, but she didn't. And I guess that's because it's a series and she's gonna end up in the next ones, but I don't know, maybe I'm a bit sadistic. Is that sadistic of me for me to have wanted her to actually die? Like, that's what all of that event was kind of leading up to, the fact that she was likely going to have to sacrifice herself for the sake of everyone else, and then conveniently everything lines up so that she happens to get rescued and she somehow manages to recover from like full-on nuclear radiation poisoning. That seems really unlikely to me, and I'm not sure if that's just me that would have wanted things to happen a bit more morbidly, or if other people would too. I just don't know. Anyway, let me know if you think I'm being too mean there. The one thing that really made me think for a long time after I finished this book was the character of Aiden. And this kind of ties into the discussion question that I did put on the review for this, so I might actually slot that in here now. A huge question is raised in this book of whether or not it is possible to calculate the most sort of ethical outcome of a situation, or whether that's something that only human judgment can decide. One of the major plot points in the book is when Ezra and his crew decide not to listen to Aiden's orders to bomb the Copernicus ship. So instead what they do is rescue the survivors that have shuttled off the Copernicus when they've realized that it's going to be bombed. And that plot point is kind of lauded as this kind of triumph of human morality over what the computer Aiden was trying to tell them to do. Like, so much of the plot is based on the fact that Aiden is the villain and it's sadistic and controlling and it's doing things that are causing more harm than good. But when you look back on it, knowing the full information of the fact that that ship was basically infected with a zombie virus that turned everyone into zombies and was airborne and highly contagious, and that in the end there were only like 700 survivors from all 3 ships because of that virus, it kind of starts to look like, even though it sounds really cruel to say, cutting that ship off would have been the best thing. There would have been so many more survivors if that ship had been sacrificed. And this is the kind of thing that I think we're gonna have to start thinking about a lot when technology starts to become even more of a part of our life as it is now, is whether or not we are capable of letting ourselves let machines make those decisions for us. Because as a human, there's kind of no way that you would be able to sit there and justify emotionally to yourself the fact that you're killing 1,000 people in order to save 4,000 people, say. But as a machine, those numbers add up perfectly and a machine can execute that. And it does end up working out for the better because you saved so many people instead of literally killing everyone because you're incapable of making one hard decision for the sake of the greater good. I'm probably starting to sound a little bit and it's something that we've actually talked about a lot at work because we're talking about the new automated cars, Teslas, and how they have like automated drive. And we're talking at work about the fact that then you have to program the computer to be able to assess an accident situation and assess the safest route. And if that means driving into a wall and killing one person or driving over here and killing a crowd, like the computer is in charge of making that decision for you, and you have to be able to program the computer to make the decision that's going to end up for the greater good. Or is it better to still let a human try and make that decision? Even though really humans are very selfish and we will end up making the most selfish decision. For example, subconsciously you'll end up saving yourself in a car accident rather than trying to save the most number of people, and a computer might not do that. I'm not trying to start to sound like I'm willing to just kill off thousands of people here. I'm just kind of adding some musing points out there, and I think my question was whether or not you agree with what happened in the novel in terms of like the Ezra versus Aiden decision that happened there, and how you would justify which sort of outcome you would vote for as the most ethical. So please don't label me as a mass murderer and tell me what you think. And the second question that I had was, the byline of the book is first survive, then tell the truth, and the concept of telling the truth is definitely a huge theme in this book. One of the main things that people are fighting for on the ship is for the fact that they're not getting all the facts and they're not getting all the information that they need in order to make decisions for survival, and that they have a right to all of the information, but then it's told in a format that doesn't give you all of the information yourself. And I didn't actually prepare an answer for this, so I might write one down in the comments because I have nothing to say right now. But if you are watching this and you've read this book, please, please, please do let me know what you think about that, because I think that is a fascinating idea for talking about. So let me know if you have any thoughts on that at all. Yeah, anything. Let me know what you think about anything else that I've said here or that I haven't said here, or possibly even anything that isn't related to the book. I don't really mind. I will see you down in the comments for a chat, hopefully. I will see you in another video very soon, I am sure. And until then, stay classic. Yes. One thing,